We can see you.
Yeah,
Click on the
that's right.
button.
I'll live. It doesn't give me.
Upper right-hand corner,
This is her.
Let's
there's
see.
usually something that's like
She's only.
view or.
Yeah, in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see speaker view or gallery view.
Let's see what this does. Ah, okay. I no longer see myself. I see you. Ah,
There you go. All right.
all right.
With the gallery?
Okay, that's cool. All right, very good. You guys need more time? We weren't very quiet, but.
Yeah. No, I would actually benefit from you all just going through it and spending the
Okay.
time.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with that?
Walk us through.
Yep.
Okay, so, although I'm on the big screen like a leader from a mothership of a bad sci-fi film, I'm gonna attempt to facilitate the meeting. And hopefully I'll be able to hear everyone speaking and not talk over any of you. If it doesn't work, please speak up. And someone else, maybe Francois, can take over facilitation, but I'm gonna try to do it initially. And to help make it smooth, I wanna try something and you guys tell me. But before someone speaks or responds to somebody else's comment, I thought maybe you would say your name first. So it would be like, Kim, yes, I agree with you, so-and-so, however. So let's try that. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I thought maybe that's a better way for everybody to understand whose turn it is to speak, because we might get, not emotional, but adrenaline going. So I just want to try to make it easy. So is everybody cool with that? Give it a try.
Michelle, yes.
Okay. Okay. So the reason we're all here is two reasons. We're coming here to move the organization forward, and we're also working in good faith so that all of us are on the same page as to the mission and the vision of the organization. So, and before we get into the agreement, I really want to address an elephant or two that are in the room, because I know that they're out there. I've heard some statements in the past regarding, the first elephant anyway, regarding the ownership of the name Disco Amigos and the logo, etc. And I believe there's some bad information being passed around that needs to get cleared up, again, for us to all be on the same page. So I'm going to make several statements here for a minute. And if you hold your comments till I'm done, and then we can have a brief discussion, because some of the things I say, some people in the room might not agree with. So make notes and let's have a discussion after I make my statements. So
Kim?
the first, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. May I ask a question?
Yes.
Are you speaking as a Disco Amigo board member?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to understand that.
Well, again, a board member and a member, because we all, like I said, we all want to be, we should be on the same mission and have the same goals here. But as, not just as a board member, but as a member here, I've heard from a couple different directions. So I just want to make sure we all are clear with the facts. And if we don't agree with the facts, we got to all get on the same page. So the first elephant, the founders of, and this is just a little history, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody that's been around for 7 years, but the founders of Disco Amigos created the intellectual property, which is the Disco Amigo name, the trademark, etc., more than 7 years ago. They own it, and they have the right to establish how it's used. The existing 501c7 here in New Orleans was created well after that IP, those IPs were created, and it does not own the rights. The ETDO is a totally separate group that was established mainly to manage the equipment. The members of ETDO happen to also be the founders as well, who own the rights to everything that is Disco Amigos. Now, as the organization has grown and we now have additional chapters, which we now are going to call local clubs, the founders have realized that they need to let go of the local leadership and let others run the local clubs. So in order to do that, it's important that we get the IP, the intellectual property, addressed, and we handle who has the rights on a legal document and how the IPs are to be utilized moving forward. So that's what the license agreement is for. And it's going to be really difficult for Jerry and Francois to let go of the apron strings a little bit. But once this agreement is in place for NOLA local club, and then a separate one is in place for the Birmingham local club, then they're going to take an advisory role with the new club management here and in Birmingham, and will oversee, for a better word, the dome roles and responsibilities that are spelled out in the agreement and also on the document. So that's really why we're here. This is how this has all come to be. ETDO initially was just equipment. Now it's going to be called, the trade name will be Disco Amigo Enterprises, and it's taking on a different type of legal role, and that's why we're here. So that's the first elephant in the room. And the second one, I'm just going to come out and say it. The second elephant in the room is the fact that Jerry is one of the founders of Disco Amigos, and he will continue to play an important role in the organization. And I know that some of you may not like his approach, but we need to make sure everybody knows he is not going away. So if anyone in the room has an issue with that, they need to reconsider whether they want to be in a management position with the local club. You'll be working with him as well as the other members of the Disco Amigo Enterprises on an ongoing basis. So those are the two things I wanted to make sure was on the table, because now that they're out there, maybe we don't have some of the emotion behind it. So with that, any questions or comments so far that we need to discuss before we get into the license agreement?
No, but thanks for that perspective.
And I hope, you state a perspective, Alfredo. Tell me more about what you're feeling there. Do you feel that any of that was inaccurate information?
I just appreciated your perspective and that background, because I think it was important for you to articulate that to us.
Okay, good. I wrote it out just so I make sure. And for the ETDO people and Abed, was I correct in my descriptions?
Yes, Kim, Mr. Francois, yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's get started on the license agreement. To Alfredo's point, we need, if we're going to go through it, we need to talk a couple things. But first I want to talk about the benefits and the whole, again, we're going back to the purpose of moving forward. And the true benefit of this agreement is autonomy on managing the local NOLA Disco Amigo club. It's going to have its own, the local club will have its own separate entity, which is what Michelle is going to be working on shortly. And it will need its own bylaws. It'll have its own bank account. And once all the funding and budget information all gets put together, you guys will have your own management of funds to help fulfill the mission. The next benefit is that the local club will have freedom on choreography and uniforms. You can create your own dances and performance for parades and lines within the guidelines, making sure that it's disco, that it's engaging the crowd, and you can have your own uniforms to meet the needs of the climate here. as long as they're within the guidelines. So, and which are all spelled out already. The next benefit is the freedom of choice of social and performance events. You guys get to manage those again, as long as they're within guidelines and following the mission. The ability to create localized merchandise, and which is great. You can manage your own local communications and your own web or social presence here. And you don't have the additional and administrative overhead expenses, because DAE is going to cover the software, the media expense, the insurance, the liability, and a few of the other administrative processes. So lots of benefits. So does anybody have any comments or questions regarding those benefits? Okay, great. Is everybody still out there?
Yep.
Okay, so does everybody have the license agreement in front of them?
Yes. Yep.
Yes. Okay. How do you recommend, Abed, since you wrote it, how do you recommend we go through this? Is there anything that we should be looking for, or do we want people to just bring up questions as we go through? Do we want to read it out loud? What do you recommend?
Well, let me just first say, you know, when I first became an attorney, well, the speech is right, it's not. When I first became an attorney, I thought I would write like a normal human being, and 13 years into it, I now write like a lawyer. So apologies in advance for all the legal crap that's in there. But I think it's important for you guys to just kind of cover it as we go through it, and it's important, you know, to just ask any questions that as we go through it. It's a long one, but hopefully it should be fairly, you know, straightforward. But if there's language in there that doesn't make sense, I don't necessarily think it makes sense for us to read it straight up, because we're talking like 15 pages. So,
Right.
But one of the things I did want to just add on to what you had just said is that, you know, a 501c7, a social club organized for pleasure and nonprofit purposes, it's important for you guys that who are going to run the nonprofit to realize that you can't have more than, IRS rules say somewhere around 30 to 35% as revenue other than outside of membership revenues, meaning that most of your revenue has to come from membership. So one of the things that's important to keep in mind here is that, you know, you're essentially separating some of the profit-making things into the for-profit and keeping the nonprofit things in the nonprofit. So if you kind of keep that in mind as we go through this, the real issue here is, you know, an element of keeping, you know, the brand of, you know, Disco Amigos intact while still retaining, letting you guys have control of your local organization. So I tried to keep that in mind as well as I was kind of drafting this, getting, you know, guidance from Jerry and Francois and Kim. So, you know, if you would just go through it, and I don't know if it's better to just read it and ask questions, or I'm not quite sure, but I just thought I'd let you know what the over the big themes were in all this.
All right. So do we want to read it?
I mean, we have till 7, and since this is the only item we're doing. Oh, 8, sorry. Wait, is it 8 or 9?
12-hour meeting.
Sorry,
I couldn't
that's
hear
my
that.
bedtime. That's my bedtime.
You're gonna have to have my retainer.
Yeah, I know.
All right, I'm at a disadvantage because I'm not getting to hear
Sorry.
what you guys are saying, but no problem. Just having a little FOMO there. No, so what was the decision? Should I be reading this out loud?
Well, since Ahmed is the one who authored it, maybe you should just walk us through it. And,
Okay.
you know, I agree, like, you don't have to read
That's
it word by word.
Sure.
Just kind of walk through each of the sections. Sure. Then let us ask some
Okay.
questions.
Sure. I'll just take this opportunity to say it's Abid, A-B-I-D-A. Kim's getting it wrong, you're getting it. Okay, I'm not offended.
I got it right.
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
So, okay, so initially, the first thing we want to designate are the parties. And so the party that's the licensor, who has the license, is ETDO. And as Kim has mentioned, they have also taken on the trade name as Disco Amigos Enterprises. And then you've got the Disco Amigos Social Club, and I also put in there any other name changes. One of the things that we're proposing is that all chapters, or what did you call it, local clubs, right, Kim? All local clubs are going to have a naming convention. So we're thinking Disco Amigos New Orleans, Disco Amigos Birmingham, Disco Amigos city name, that kind of thing. So as a naming convention. So that I put that as, Disco Amigos Social Aid and Pleasure Club, which is the current name, and any other name that it turns into or merges with or whatnot. The recitals basically state essentially what Kim was saying, which is who owns the IP and how we're trying to move forward here. And then the agreements are the license grant, which is a non-exclusive license between the for-profit and the non-for-profit. And then we get into what are the actual licensed IP and the terms under how they are being licensed. So the words Disco Amigos, the logo, anytime there's a reference to an exhibit, that's going to be in the back. And so there might be additional things for you to look at in the back of the agreement there. So feel free to flip around. Then there's some taglines. In the costumes and uniforms section, we tried to be as, I guess, explicit without being restrictive. But, it's what I always say whenever I'm drafting these things is ambiguity leads to conflict down the road. So the more specific, the better. So I tried to draft what I think would be essentially good terms for costumes. Merchandise has some interesting components to it because there's merchandise that's local. There may be merchandise that comes from Disco Amigos Enterprises, so we'll just call it DAE for short. And then there may be also certain types of things that you guys want to give away. And I think that DAE essentially just wants to make sure that they can ask you guys to put a logo on there whenever, when it feels important. As far as events, there are several types of events, so I tried to list those there. Signage, again, is sometimes there may be a flag or a banner or a logo that might be important to have. I think one of the things was that in private events, there was a distinction about private events where it wasn't open to the public, and there's a lot more freedom to do what you wanted to do in those events because it's not an official Disco Amigos event. Choreography and music, I think the local clubs can do their own choreography. I think there's some discussion about DAE providing some centralized choreography from time, like main themes. It's kind of like the Zumba idea where you get like Zumba Central sends you once a month dances and but then the rest is up to you to choreograph. Social media, again, taking the naming convention of DAE owning the main website and the main social media properties like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and then the local clubs should take Disco Amigos - New Orleans or Disco Amigos - Birmingham, that kind of thing. As far as the license fees goes, do you guys want to talk through that, since that a lot of that came from you? Because I'm not entrenched in the finances. So does somebody else want to take it from there?
Sure. Can I ask a question though about one question in particular I was interested in with choreography? You mentioned certification. So who would be doing that, and how would you inspect for standards? What was you thinking about standards, and like who within ETDO has the qualifications to set standards?
So within the Disco Amigos Enterprises, I'm in conversations with 2 other choreographers that have worked in this type of field. And they're willing, well, one of them, is Dana Reed from Upturn Arts. And she is very interested in kind of creating this because as we continue to scale and open up different clubs, it's less about the dance experience. It's less about the dance quality. It's less about knowing the dance. The certification is more similar to what they do with kind of the Zumba. Zumba has a very similar kind of qualification that it's not so much on your exercise level or ability, but that you understand the culture, the concept, the whole idea of the collaboration, create, celebrate piece behind it, so that that culture can permeate as we continue going forward. Again, from the beginning, we never set out for this to be purely a dance troupe.
Well,
that was never.
Sorry to interrupt you. I understand the rationale. I'm asking specifically about the certification, who is qualified to provide that, and also standards of the training program.
Well, that is being developed, and I think it's really up to DAE to determine who's qualified or not.
Okay.
To clarify, are we talking about qualified to dance or qualified to be a choreographer?
Qualified to be a choreographer and lead the classes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're both on the same page there because, so Alfredo, were you asking about certification to be qualified to be a choreographer? Is that what you were asking?
No, I was actually asking about the organization, and who within the organization would have the qualifications to provide such a certification, choreography certification, and who within the organization, I'm referring to ETDO as the organization, has the qualifications to set standards for training, and if those standards for trainings are part of this document.
The standards for training have not been set.
That's what I was asking.
That is what's going to be developed.
Yeah.
Again, this is kind of setting up a precursor for, as we continue to grow, there needs to be some continuity.
Yep.
So you have guidelines on what the logo should look like, how you would place the logo.
No, I get the rationale.
That's kind of the.
Jerry, as we move forward, you were talking about the woman from
Dana Reed.
Yeah, Dana Reed, and I've spoken to someone up in New York City as well
and
too.
would you not also perhaps include one of our choreographers in the group that helps develop it, just to make sure that everybody?
I mean, the point is to get input from as many. I mean, the other aspect of this is not to have a static set of choreographers. It was meant for everyone to bring their creative ideas and share and be supported by all of the choreographers and all of the members within that, so that if any member has an idea what to do, it would be supported through that aspect. And really the certification aspect is really to make sure it's in line with that kind of culture, openness, and inclusiveness.
Is it fair to say that the certification is more not a restrictive thing, but more of a quality control thing?
More of a quality control thing, right? Yes, and a culture thing. It's really more of a culture thing.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. So basically, ETDO would come in and we would say, Alfredo, Michelle, and Lizette want to become choreographers and get certified. ETDO would provide someone to come in, train them, sign them off, and then they do whatever they want. And then your company would come in and audit them every so often to make sure our dances are meeting the standards.
It's not so much the dances, again, as it is the teaching and that creative culture that's there. But yeah. And I can foresee it going that it won't even be kind of, I mean, in the beginning, probably a one-on-one kind of personal type of thing, but as it scales, anybody can become a Disco Amigos certified choreographer if they want to start their own group and kind of spread it that way. And it's very similar to how Zumba does it. I'm really kind of following a lot of that Zumba model.
And Michelle, to your point about auditing, I think what we want to get to is not like a big brother approach, but more, since there's going to be them on the advisory board, so to speak, you'll have ongoing communication. So it's not like once a quarter somebody's going to show up unannounced and audit anybody. I don't think that's the mood of this whole document. But I know what you're saying. But we want to.
It's definitely not clear
make
already.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Marissa. I have a question along a similar vein regarding social media, internet. I'm just wondering about capacity for doing that within ETDO, if you intend to grow the capacity specifically, and I'm going to look at Bruce with the website, and how we're going to take care of that.
So with the website, if I can kind of answer this, I've started conversations with another web developer, and they're working on an architecture to set it up so that each club and organization under that will have their own domain that they can set up, and it will be set up on the template. Obviously, if there are certain programming things, we can kind of work about that, and any local club can hire their own web developer to kind of work within that. But the idea behind the web page is that you would have a consistent brand that's out there, and that it's going to Disco Amigos, and if they were like, hey, I want to learn more about the Birmingham, they would go to the Birmingham site. If they want to learn more about the New Orleans, they would go to the New Orleans site. If they want to learn about New York City, they would go to the New York site. And then that website piece is that club's ownership from that.
Turns into a portal,
Basically.
different chapters to maintain their own content. So
Yeah.
Is the intent to develop a new platform rather than kind of using some of the standard platforms that are available?
Well, it's going to be developed on a WordPress platform
Okay.
that has the plugins on that.
So this is Lizette. So if there are things that need to be updated or changed or whatever, a person, like if we have a social media committee or whatever, can go right in there and do it right when it needs to be done.
Correct.
And
For the local one, but.
the local one, right,
ETDO
yeah.
have a main page with links to all the local.
Correct.
Right. Because I think that what we're all talking about here is timeliness and ability to get information on there correctly and
Making sure there's
quickly.
correct information.
Exactly, correctly and
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
In addition
again,
to that, oh, go ahead, Jerry.
No, go ahead, Kim.
I was just gonna say, while we're on that subject, Disco Amigos members only. Before we do anything with that, if we are gonna do anything with that, we wanna make sure we capture all of the pictures that are currently on that. So I just wanna go to say that we have got to, if we're gonna create a completely different Facebook page, then we need to find a way to get all those pictures onto a new Facebook page, because there are some great pictures from the last 4 years in there that we don't want to lose. So just for the record.
Did that answer your questions, Marissa? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
So I think we
All right,
were at,
License fees.
yeah, so,
I'm sorry, before we move on, just a quick question about the timeline for doing that. You said someone is looking at developing an architecture.
Yeah, I don't, hopefully can get it up before the end of this year.
And hopefully, I mean, there's a budget that needs to be allocated and all that, and all this has to be worked out, and finances have to be built in order to do that. So it doesn't exist today. So we have to be able to set this up, get some income, have income to be able to do all this. So I want to be realistic with the timeframes. These are the intent. It's a work in progress the first few months and year until we can get to that point and launched.
And you're talking at ETDO, you say we.
I'm talking about-
get time.
Well, all of it, yeah.
And be all separated, and I'm talking about Disco Amigo Enterprises, has to get up and running and financially stable.
You were too passionate. ETDO have those stuff you were referring to. in the finance part.
Well, I mean, again, I notice you guys keep bringing up the ETDO aspect. This is not going to work if it's constantly opposite sides of the table. Again, it's kind of within this dome structure, is Disco Amigos Enterprises is that support and that backbone to continue to spread the joy of disco and the mission and vision of what we're trying to do. So we're really going to be in bed together and partners in all this. So there is no more hats.
Right, but the funding and this whole setup falls on
Falls on Disco
the
Amigos
enterprise, not
Correct.
the membership group.
Correct.
So all I was trying to
Correct.
clarify.
Got it.
Financial. Speaking of finances.
Which is a great transition into the license fees. Jerry, do you want to cover that, or?
Sure, yeah. So, in looking at our past finances, the structure that we have, this is all on kind of an Exhibit 4. And I guess a caveat on this is we put it in the agreement that within the first year of the license agreement, within 6 months, we want to look at this and see if it makes sense. Because, again, it doesn't make sense for the local club to be struggling on finances. It also doesn't make sense for DAE to be struggling on finances with that. So we're trying to make it as equitable as possible. A model that I put together is trying to also scale up, looking at how Tony had grown the Birmingham aspects. And there's two components to kind of the fee structure. There's going to be a base fee that gets paid to kind of cover the administrative, that web development, all of the things that need to keep that on and running. And then it's a per member fee that gets signed on. The example that I have in that exhibit is going with our suggested annual member dues of $250. If you're at, say we're at the 80 member mark, DAE gets $100 of that. The rest goes to the local club, but the local club also has to pay the $2,500 for that support. So overall, the local club gets 48% of that total amount, and the DAE gets the 53% from that. Now that $250 is really up to the club to decide, because I don't know if that's the right number for Birmingham, definitely don't know if that's the right number for New York City. So it's really up to the local club to set what they want that membership fee and those levels to be. The big thing is that whoever's a member that's recorded in the books, that gets paid the $100 as that royalty to Disco Amigos. And it was structured as such that there's an incentive that the more you grow, the more you get the piece of the pie. The other piece that really isn't kind of in here is that doesn't mean that that's all the money you're going to get. I have not officially written in here because it would be really on a club-by-club basis on that, but basically co-op funds. Co-op funds are used when a lot in kind of franchise agreements where the corporate entity would supply investment and funding if it's matched up or to some percentage of by the local funds. So for example, hey, we really wanted to create new doubloons, or we really wanted to create a new giveaway that we wanted to have for long ongoing. It makes sense for both DAE and the local club to have it, and say it costs $10,000, but you guys only had $3,000 to put in. DAE would co-op and co-fund that other $7,000 to make sure that that happened, if we saw that that was kind of a growth going forward.
That's not in here, though.
That's not in here. That we don't know what that is yet and how that would be. So this is basically to keep the lights on everything.
So the base fee and per member fee, that's a set fee regardless of what our membership dues.
Correct. So if you raise your dues to 300, we still get 100. If you raise your dues to 400,
Each member?
whatever to it, you guys get all that extra.
Each member.
Oh, and then, well, then there's the
She had a question.
sorry, the 80 and 20, sorry, I'm not done with my question.
Sorry.
So this is a set fee based on number of members, and then what is this percentage here of split?
So that would be, so that split is, so the total revenue of dues, so if we look, again, look at level E of 80 people, the total revenue coming in would be 20,000. 9,500 is what the club would get as the budget to run, and the 10,500 is what goes to DAE to keep all the support up for all
And
of that.
of the 9,500, we'd have to pay you guys 25
No,
on top.
that already includes it. The 9,500 is your net.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah. The 9,500 is your net on that.
That includes the $100 per
Yep,
member.
that's already taken.
And the
off.
base fee.
And the base fee,
Why don't we work off of how many, you have 80 members here, right?
approximately.
Okay, so
Yeah.
look walk through level E, because that's what applies to New Orleans. So you're saying that at 80 people with $250 per person, is that what the membership fee is? Okay.
Yeah.
So the revenues per year are $20,000, right?
Right.
And then
I'm paying 75, so.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue of kind of figuring out that aspect. I mean, again, we've had this contention for a couple years now of feeling that some people can't afford the full membership fee on not wanting to perform with that aspect. This really reared its head with Birmingham constantly wanting to bring in interns or subsidizing people without paying it because she's trying to attract a younger audience, which again is what we're all here for. I mean, that's great to grow the membership and grow that aspect. However, in order for the local club to really manage that, that would be kind of deducted. So if you said, yeah, we're going to allow 12 people to be discotistas, we're going to subsidize that $25 for them to be that.
So that's where I was, the way I
So,
was
DAE is gonna supplement that?
No,
No,
the-
that would come out of the local budget, because then it's up to you of, do we really need 25 discotistas? Do we really want the 12 that are going to help us out? Or we want to do internships and subsidize their membership completely? I mean, if we keep subsidizing it, because this is what's happening in Birmingham, I want to now have 5 internships. And so there are people that are getting the benefit without paying any dues. And it's basically a tax on everybody else.
Okay, so the way I was reading this is at 80 members, we pay a flat fee. I was kind of trying to tie it back here, a flat overhead management fee to cover website and then a fee per member signed up through the membership portal.
Right.
Basically, these two columns don't even add into the equation. It's literally, if we have 80 members, whatever our revenue amount is, we're going to get 48% of it.
Well, it's 48% if you have your 250. That's why I broke it out that way. So if you say the 80 members, what you pay in a year is 2,500 flat fee plus 80 times 100, which is 8,000. You add those two together, that's the 10,500. If you increased your dues to 300 or 350, that 9,500 keeps going up and up and up. But that's for you guys to manage on what the pricing would bear. So it's 2,500.
That's a flat, that's what
That's
I'm
a
saying.
flat?
So there's a flat fee based on 80 members, we pay you 2,500.
Anywhere between 50 and 80.
actually, let me clarify. There's actually 2 flat fees. There's the base flat fee of $2,500 for 80 members, that's the tier. And then there's a $100 per member flat fee.
Correct.
That's
And
about
then-
$800 if you had 80 members?
8,000.
8,000, I'm sorry, yeah.
8,000 plus 2,500 equals
Flat fee.
Equals that
10,500.
10,500.
So
And
those
then-
are the constants. Now, if the local club decides to go higher or lower, if they go lower, they eat what they have left. If they go higher, they keep what they have left. But those are the flat fees. There's a flat fee of the 2,500 and a flat fee of $100 per member. Okay.
80 times. All right. And the 2,500 flat fee is the first bullet point, and then the second is the fee per member on the contract.
In the agreement, right?
Yes, correct,
This is bullet point.
correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm an accountant, I total across, and this math was not working for me. So I was-
Financial modeling, so. I was trying to create a graduated scale
Yeah.
on that.
I've always struggled with this spreadsheet, so
Yeah.
that's why I need my clarification.
No problem.
All right, so then you're going to move on to merchandising fee and rental.
Sure. That's where we're at. So the merchandising fee, again, we kind of split this 2 ways of both the licensor, DAE, and the club benefit from using the Disco Amigos logo. DAE also benefits from you guys being out in the street, recruiting, showcasing what's going on. So if people want to buy, you know, quote unquote, an official merchandise, you guys should get 20% of that royalty there. At the same time, you guys want to create your own merchandise with Disco Amigos NOLA elements to it and branding as this is the New Orleans club, you should get the greater percentage of that, but since you're using the Disco Amigos IP, we get the 20% of that. So there's kind of a split on that. And we would also set up within that website an ability for you guys to have your own store to host and promote your local stuff alongside with the national stuff.
So not like in the 70s where Capitol Records took everything.
No.
So if we have local merchandise, we have to give you whatever we sell it for, we give you 20% of that.
Right.
Because it's a Disco Amigos New Orleans.
Right.
And then if
Essentially, it should wash out, because if
we sell
you
something
get
that just says Disco Amigos.
Disco Amigos National,
guys get
you guys get 20% of that, all of that.
Okay, so,
And jump back on it, it's also to incentivize as well creativity from the local clubs so that you get it.
And we'd have a portal to advertise our stuff. And what about fulfillment of merchandise from both?
Well, the fulfillment for the national will be done by us. Fulfillment on the local, at the time being, would have to be fulfilled by you guys, but I'm looking at more of
Cafe Press.
a national, regional, yeah, the quality isn't all that,
I know, and there's
that's great there.
That eats right.
So for example, like conversations I've had with, FOPA, they have their own portal, but they need so much volume through that, and we're not there yet. But if it's a point of going, hey, combined with all three clubs, volume, Birmingham doesn't have to use a printer. They can use print, and then they can do all the printing and fulfillment for that, and that helps reduce headache and everybody on that.
Those, yeah, those are larger pictures, we'd have to get there.
Correct, but we're not there yet.
rental fee?
So then the rental fee is basically the last piece of using the equipment from ETDO, and that is not complete. However, I brought up our original document, and this really just needs to be updated because of the equipment of packages that we have here. I don't know if you want to look at that. Is all over there, because it still talks about the van, which no longer exists. We have speakers that are broken that we need to fix. Some of some of the projection lights and stuff we don't have anymore. So basically, we kind of need to do this, but it would be done in that same good faith effort of recreate the packages, provide the licenses, that 40% discount, and really kind of work with you guys on, do you want another retainer system in place, or is it on a per use basis on the events that you use or not?
Yeah, I think there could be a I would imagine on this piece too, it'd be more of a conversation of what you envision for the next year and needs. Retainer may not be necessary, but it may just be, all right, we need to get this parade going, or we need to get this event going, and we need these kind of things. Or it's a bigger picture, maybe there's a purchasing and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's something we're looking at too. Same with the co-op funds, like the marketing aspects of, all right, yeah, you're at a point where you guys need your, let's just make it simple, of like, you really just need 2 15-inch speakers and stuff so we can do all the French Quarter parades and basic ones where we don't need the whole big package. We'd work and help finance you guys getting your own equipment to manage for that. Because then if it's like, yeah, we're doing this 10, 12 times a year, that's a better use of the money. Again, this kind of comes from Birmingham, of Tony constantly asking it. And then when we said, well, you know, each one of those speakers, the small ones are about $9,500 a piece. So it's like 18 grand for just 2 small speakers. And you didn't even talked about a a power unit for that. It's about a $12,000 or $22,000 package for that. We certainly don't expect any club to be able to pay that out of pocket, but if it's like, you know what, it makes sense that we can buy it, finance it, help kind of push that forward, that's the better way to kind of do that and move that forward.
So it's basically just taking this and saying, we have this option.
You have that option,
Today.
and
So it's not a must-have. We can say, we're gonna go buy our own truck.
if you want to do that, yeah.
Okay, keep going?
We're trying to drive.
Should we keep going? We only have 11 more pages to come.
Yeah.
Where are we on time? A lot of that stuff. we don't-
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
Okay, so the management and bylaws, there are some things in here that you guys should probably, cover and look at closely in particular. And the process that went behind this was basically that essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to, have a franchise model, with the for-profit and then franchising out to the nonprofits. So
I'm
there's,
sorry, what page are you on?
I'm on page, at the end of page 4, and moving into page 5. That is the management and bylaws.
Or number 4.
Number 4,
Page number 4, sorry, yeah.
like, right after
Right
the
under.
fees. Right after, here,
Oh,
down here,
okay.
right here.
Thank you.
Well, I guess one thing on the fees too, I mean, the other pieces there of, to try to make, again, minimize the administrative aspect of it, it would be just a quarterly kind of, hey, auditing, seeing where we're at with the finances, with the budget, with the membership, and kind of working together on how can we kind of reach those goals for that. So that's what's there. The payment thing, hopefully we'll kind of never get to that point, but it was suggested that we include it, so.
Which one?
The payment made within 7 days.
Oh, yeah, that's just me being an asshole.
Yeah, okay.
Attorney.
So I couldn't charge my rate if I didn't put that. So, okay, and then in terms of the bylaws, this is where I think it's important to understand that it's not so much that anybody, that VA is imposing anything, but I think this clarifies, kind of the activities that, that VA wants to have in any club organization. And so if you could just read through that and see if there's any questions.
I have a question. Can you speak to the spirit of the approval process for the executive director?
Well, again, the spirit of is we're going to be in bed together and we're going to be working very closely for it. So if there's any distrust, if there's any personality conflicts, if there's any issue that would make that a contentious agreement, there's really no point in that relationship.
Is that the criteria?
Pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I'm not looking for an MBA or anything like that, no.
So is that executive director one of the 2 members from the,
No, the executive director would be basically the president of the 501c7, or who's going to be the signatory on the licensing agreements, on the insurance documents.
And that person's also going to be the main point of contact
And the
between.
main point of contact, yeah.
Because part of this is, we also, when we were talking through this, it's like, you got to be able to scale, right? If you're going to have lots of clubs, you can't be talking to 8 people per club. You've got to be able to talk to the main person from the particular club. And I think that's working well with Berlin, right?
Correct.
So,
Yep.
okay. I'm happy to slow down in this part, but any other questions?
Well, just a quick comment that there's a parenthetical remark here in this version, so obviously we're not looking at the final version of the contract, but,
Where?
We also have this note that.
No, that is there. Yeah. You had said, in the bylaws that you guys create, that approval process continues, so that needs to be in the new bylaws from that. I mean, I don't know if that's just a redundant piece or not, because it's part of the licensing agreement.
the approval process must be in the bylaws, is what you're saying?
So yeah, the executive director in our bylaws would have to say that an executive director will be voted on by the members, but yet has to be approved
Or however you
by
guys want to
the-
set up your bylaws.
Yeah, but that,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you
yeah,
also
so
have
the-
to add that nomenclature.
Yeah,
Has to
that's
be
right.
approved by you guys. Weird, sorry.
I don't know if it's redundant, because that was from our notes
Yeah,
from when we were talking over the weekend, and
I'm making edits as we go.
it may not be pertinent.
And I don't know, is this sort of standard for a franchise agreement, or is this a particular?
Well, franchise agreement's a lot more restrictive.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, with a lot of franchise, and that's why we don't really want to go down the franchise route, because with franchise, it's managed by the Federal Trade Commission, and the SEC gets involved. Because you need to have members, and it depends on how you, and correct me if I'm wrong, because that's not my area of expertise. But you need to have a certain amount of net worth, you need to have a certain amount of cash flow, you know, to kind of support the whole thing.
It also
That's not what we want to set up
removes
at
the
all.
whole idea of having a nonprofit at the local level, which
Yes.
has lots of tax advantages, right?
There would be a lot more controls and restrictions within a licensing.
Think of it from this perspective, right? Like, even if I wanted to go out and, you know, buy McDonald's, I still have to interview with corporate, right? I mean, and if it's a smaller franchise, which is what this is right now, then it certainly makes sense that I'd have to interview with whomever's the controlling body, right? And so all this is, you know, y'all pick whoever's going to be the, you know, executive director, and you can do it every year, every couple of years, whatever the term is, you guys decide that. I think all they're saying is that DAE wants to be able to make sure they're good with that person. So,
So do we need language in here that says if you
Interview process.
decline, like, yeah, like how, what are the rules for you?
Well, yeah, and
decline
hopefully,
on a person that our
to get to
members
that
appoint?
point, we wouldn't just be like, hey, we did this all off in a closet, and now, do you like them or not? It would be an ongoing process. Just, we have in our current bylaws that you couldn't be on the executive board unless you were on the board year, you couldn't be on the board unless you were a member for a year and were on a committee, so that that person would know and understand the culture and the process that we're trying to go through. So hopefully it's not going to be like well, this is the person we want, and we have no idea that that's been going or talking with that. I mean, again, to use Birmingham as an example, the conversations I've had with Tony over the past year of going, yeah, I'd really like to set up my own little local structure, and I'm thinking about TAD, and I said, yeah, I've met with him and Alan, I had multiple conversations with Alan and everyone else kind of there. I'm like, well, I trust you to do that, but it's Tony that has a relationship with DAE, and then if she says, well, now Alan wants to go up there, it's like, all right, they're already in the process, and we know how that would work, so it's not meant to be a blind candidate coming in.
Well, I feel like that's where our attorney that we have, I feel like I'd like him to be able to have time to review this as well before we make any decisions.
Sure.
With us getting it so late today and traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's keep moving forward. And I think that the whole purpose of that right there is just to make sure that everybody still has the best interest of the Disco Amigos in mind. And that's really what you mean by making sure that they fit the bill, is that person is going to continue to move the organization forward. So, all right, any other?
so,
Here.
I think once we get past that 5 through, I think, the rest is more boilerplate. I guess the only thing that I would want to, as an attorney, just point out is when we get to number 12, the idea is, this is the part that I hate doing in collaborative agreements, but at the same time, I think it's important to mention that if there are terms that are not, or if there's any, violation of the agreement, then, as the owner of the IP, the DA has the right to hold the right to use the IP. And so, I'm trying to be very explicit there, and it feels fairly draconian, so apologies for that.
And it should never get to that, because everybody should be on the same goals, but you're right, we'll have to document.
Yeah. And then the rest is pretty much boilerplatey, so the rest of the discussion, I think, so Exhibit A is just the logo itself. And then copyrighted slogans and taglines and.
Actually, before you go there, I want, the term, I think, is
Oh, yeah, sure.
kind of important.
Yep.
So again, I mean, this is kind of new for all of us on this, and so we're really looking to just set it up as a ongoing, so the idea and the spirit of this is to be in a partnership moving forward. So it would be a one-year term that automatically kind of renews, and there would be being involved in the local club's board meetings, the quarterly audits and reports to help kind of guide that going forward. And so anything that needs to be adjusted from year to year can be adjusted. So if it's like, hey, these fees aren't really working, we need to do kind of something else, or fitment, all of that would be worked out with the local club during that point with that. So.
Is that written notice of termination? Doesn't say, just says give notice of non-renewal.
I guess we should put it as written notice.
Which number are you on term?
Oh, he's on 21. the
21.
Yeah. Current term.
It's written notice, yeah.
So if you send a notice of non-renewal within, it's a year term. So in month 3 of that year term, we still have to go the remaining 9 months under the agreement, even though we've given the 60 days.
Yes, 60 days prior to the end of the term if you don't want to continue, but hopefully we would know that before the 60 days.
In other words, we're in bed together, to use your words, for a year, but we can, after 30 days, say we're giving you 60-day notice, but we wouldn't get out of bed until a year from now.
Correct.
I think that's what you.
That's what I was asking, yeah.
And, yeah, basically 10 months into the 12, there'd be written notice, yeah.
Unless there's material breach.
Okay.
Pretty typical stuff. So before you go to the exhibit, I just want to make sure, it was already mentioned, but I want to make sure, and I heard Michelle say that she wants to run this past her attorney, but at the point when we sign it initially, we're signing it as the current board. So I would be representing, let's see, at this point, I would be representing the Disco Amigos Social and Pleasure Club, correct?
Yep.
Correct.
Right.
That's why
And
your name
then
is written.
one of you would be signing. So based on Michelle's, after she talks to somebody, so we would go through this, get it signed, and then we can move on and do all the other physical things that we need to do. However, tonight, regardless, I think we can all agree to establish whatever announcements need to go to the members, because none of this really affects the members other than what is the membership fee, everything else is pretty much status quo. So I don't want to jump ahead, but I just wanted to have everybody have that in their head, that before we leave here tonight, we need to really talk about next steps.
Right. I'm not comfortable taking a vote on this tonight with only having it 2 hours before this meeting, and I do want to talk to the attorney on this too, to better understand going forward what this impacts to the future of the members as a board member, to better understand it before.
All right, so even though this is the existing board, not the new management, you're still not comfortable signing
As
this.
the board member of this board, I am not comfortable putting a motion to approve this tonight. I would say we need at least a week to kind of chew on this and have our attorney look at it and just make sure going forward is.
I would agree. There's a lot to digest here. And I think that the membership, we need to all be able to understand it and articulate it to the membership, you know, when we're ready, when we're at that point, not that we're there yet, but, I agree. I wouldn't want to take any steps without some time to think and stew on this.
All right, well, that attorney is for.
I need more time. Gotta look at it and think about it.
Yeah, Kim,
Okay.
I will just share that I am not showing up at my best tonight. I honestly drove in from Baton Rouge and I had a really rough day, and one of my directors quit this week, and so I have a lot on my plate.
That's fine.
So
Nobody,
I would
that's
love
fine.
some time to know what questions I really want to ask, and I'm not there tonight.
Well, I'm not pushing to have it signed. What I was referring to is, putting together some talking points for going out into the public about the fact that nothing's, you know, as far as members and dancers are concerned, everything, you know, is business as normal as far as they're concerned. There are some leadership changes, there's, you know, things happening, but I think that since we owe people an answer and we need to open up the membership dues and remind everybody that they need to have dues in, we probably should have some type of voice going out saying, you know, all's good, membership dues are due, we'll be back to you later with specifics of the management changes, but business as usual as far as events and dancing. That's all I'm saying.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Make a quick comment? It seems like everybody here, you didn't see a lot of shaking heads, so it seems like there's people need time to get through it. And that's fine. I think making any statements might be premature at this point, because if they don't want to move forward, that's going to shake up the organization in a very large way. So,
Yeah, I guess.
So imagine putting out, you know, oh, there'll be a change in leadership and, you know, there'll be this and that, and then suddenly you all don't want to sign this agreement, and then ETDO says, okay, then Disco Amigos moves forward. And at that point, you know, there's a potential giant storm of things that need to be discussed. And, you know, so I think making comments like that, even to the public, I mean, essentially, if everybody wants to wait, you know, another week to talk about it, then you guys should not say anything to anybody for another week.
Yeah, I think until you read and have time to digest this, then from that meeting, we can then start to formulate what we're communicating.
So do we want to postpone the dues being due by September 1st, or do we just do nothing right now?
One step. Is a week enough time to review it? How much time do you feel you need in order to review the document?
It depends on the attorney's availability too. I mean, sometimes
we
can't get a meeting until.
Holiday coming. At this point, I don't want to rush something just to rush it, to get something out.
No, I agree.
I'm only going to put the elephant on the table is we rushed to put this out on the table for tonight.
Well, actually,
So
we did do a month ago, Francois, for our agreement, so I think us asking for a couple weeks is reasonable.
That's all I'm asking is how much time do you feel is
Yeah, I mean,
time?
if it's next week for me, I'm not gonna, I already have stuff booked up for the evening, so could we look to the week of after Labor Day, which to your point, then we should do that.
Correct. So, and the intent when we all got into this in March was to ensure that the members never felt this.
They're starting to feel.
They're feeling it. So that is As a,
Right.
whatever position or hat you want me to wear, that is a concern
And
for
as,
membership.
and as the head of the executive directors of the District Amigos Board, we need to move action on the Mardi Gras themes, contract signed, so.
This is pretty big impact
We're gonna move
to all
forward
of
with
that, so that's why we don't, to this point, no communication should come out until we are comfortable with it.
Yeah. There's a middle ground, though. I think maybe we should communicate to the membership where we're at. And it's not to
Generic.
share any details, but just to say we've met and this was the outcome of the meeting. I mean, we've had a practice of having these meetings open to the membership, and also posting the minutes of the meetings so that every member has access to them. So I don't see why there shouldn't be a communication just to say, we've met, we've seen the agreement, we're looking it over more closely. That's it.
I'm not sure when you just give somebody just a little information, it can be dangerous. So I'm not sure that even sharing what we've talked about tonight is a smart with the membership, not because we're trying to hide anything or not be transparent, but mostly because this is why there is a board, is so that this type of thing doesn't fall down on the people who are just trying to have fun. So
Yeah.
I think that, I don't think we should put out a message or minutes of tonight's meeting. My only thing I was saying is, we told them that dues would not be due until September 1st. So if September 1st comes, there are going to be questions. So we do have to have some kind of statement out to them about what should they do.
So we have, if I can offer this suggestion, we have a document. The document's on the table, and we have the resources to answer questions. Why don't we take a week and see what we can have answered in that week? And see if we can meet next week and get to the resolution so that we can honor the agreement that we made as a board to the members.
I'm fine with that.
See on the calendar.
Are you
and then we
available?
can see.
Would it help to have Abed talk to your lawyer and discuss any of the resolutions that they feel there might be some contention on that?
What happened?
Yeah, it looks like,
Kim?
and hit it, Matt.
What's that?
No, she's there.
Just lost her video.
Lost her video.
Oh.
Oh,
It's okay, she's on the phone, I
that's
think.
because I was looking up I did.
So I'll tell you from a legal ethics perspective, the fact that, you know, you guys have another attorney makes me, I have to talk to that person. Like I can't be answering questions, you know, individually just because as soon as I know there's another attorney, I have to talk to the other attorney about it.
That's fine.
You know, so if you guys want to talk amongst yourselves, that's cool. If the attorney wants to reach out to me, I can tell them at that point what my clients wish to happen and negotiate, and we can go that way. You know, I'll tell you that, you know, whatever keeps the peace, because you guys all have to work together moving forward, or if you can't, then there needs to be you know, some sort of separation here, because I think that from an agreement perspective and moving forward perspective, you know, in terms of how these things are laid out, you get to this point where it's difficult to find, like what I'm trying to say is we've got to get to what the deal breakers are fast. So, you know, pardon my French, but enough bullshit. What's the issue, and let's talk about it, right? And if I need to step out of the room to do that, fine. But if I need to talk about it with somebody, it's going to have to be, you know, the other attorney.
Okay. No, it's just more of us, digesting it. I mean, I'm available next Thursday evening.
And I'll put it on the table. If any of you have questions that you don't want to, that's not, I mean, it's up to you if you want to talk to your attorney. You're welcome to reach out to Jerry or I. We're going to be working together. Happy to answer the phone and talk with you about it.
It's just a lot to, you know, for your point, it's a lot to absorb into numbers, and this is a pretty big change.
I'm not tending to rush through that. I'm trying to make sure we're acknowledging others. This is a This is not something, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is not something that we can pull off the shelf and create. This is a new altogether.
It's a whole new paradigm.
It is.
It's a whole new paradigm. And in my mind, it's one that enables, you know, one of the things as I talked to Jerry through some of these issues was that, you know, his intentions were, you know, how to scale and grow this thing and step out of the control from the club, but then be able to still retain the ability to control the overall brand that he's trying to grow. And, you know, that is essentially what we really wanted to get at here. But in order to do that and have him grow, you know, and have these guys all grow various clubs, you know, there's got to be a way to take certain functions off, you know, and keep other functions in. And at the same time, there's also the flow of money and how that occurs, while maintaining the nonprofit component and the for-profit component. And so there's a lot of things to balance, which is why this feels big, and which is why this is a completely different paradigm from just one, you know, 501c7, right? So it is a lot to digest. So I think, all right, I'll stop.
And this is Marissa for Tim out there, since you asked us to say our names. I appreciate that we've walked through this. It's been a lot more helpful than just reading it. I do have concerns about the fact that we still, as a board, don't know the status of our finances. And until we kind of see that as a starting point, I'm a little leery of, you know, what happens next for anything.
Okay.
It's been a long while.
So
We talked about that.
the update on that is I'm meeting with the CPA tomorrow to go over both the Disco Amigos and the ETDO finances. He is familiar, I mean, he hasn't looked at this license agreement or anything, but he is familiar with that kind of entity and switching it up, and he does not think it would be a problem. So I mean, I had a introductory call with him today. We're meeting tomorrow to go over it, and I will ask him if I retain him and say, is this something that you can kind of put together on how all that would flow by next week?
But can we get our current financial situation up to date?
Sure, I mean, that would be part of that. Yeah.
To kind of say, well, here's where we're starting at money-wise, right, as a local club, and I would assume those monies are paid with the local club, correct?
Clubs, yeah, so you've got, there's.
Birmingham would do their own 501c and get their own checking account. and-
Right, but right now, all the finances are commingled because
Right,
they've already
but we
paid
just need
dues.
to
And
kind of know where we're at.
I don't
right?
disagree.
Yep.
I don't disagree. None of us had time to focus on any of that stuff. So yes, we understand that. We knew this was priority so that the steps can be made. And we understand the finances are priority.
But I think that to Marissa's point, play a little bit into the fees here to just kind of better understand operations.
Sure.
So where we rolled out after this.
Yes and no, because the fee yes and no, I don't disagree completely, but the fee structure that Jerry lays out, I just want to acknowledge, it's based on the members that are signing up as of September 1st. So that is a very clear and clean process of knowing if I'm going to retain the 80 members I have, you know exactly what the budget is, you know exactly where the net revenue is. Everything that is in the account now, and there is money in the account, is above and beyond that. So that's why I say yes and no.
So would it just be an issue of whatever is New Orleans versus whatever is Birmingham, and separating them, what exists prior to September 1st?
And they are already up through March before CPA left. So it would just be the last, at least through July. Obviously, we're not quite through.
Can you talk louder? I can't hear you.
We can probably have them through August based on the fact that we're 10 days out.
Jerry, did I hear you say that you're going to try to have something for next Thursday if we meet for next Thursday? Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, I can talk to the CPA tomorrow, and I mean, we don't have a very complicated account structure on it. I don't know. I mean, I'm meeting with him tomorrow, so he might be able to say, I'll have it to you by Sunday, you know? So I really don't know, because there's nothing complex in the whole thing, really.
But it is noted to Marissa's point, that it is important, like Francois said.
Sure.
Also.
Oh, of course.
So we understand everybody's got that question, so, and I've been bugging them too about it, so we gotta get there, and we will. And while we're kind of on that subject, I know that Alfredo responded to Tony, and I just wanted to let you know, Alfredo, that Jerry is going to reach out directly to her, because now that you guys have seen what we're talking about here, this same thing has to happen with them. And so the same issues that we just all discussed are the same things that Jerry's going to be talking with Tony about. So it wasn't that we weren't answering her question about needing equipment. He's going to have to talk to her about what equipment she needs and the timing and everything.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, Kim, because I did give Tony my word that I would advocate for us to have that discussion.
Right.
I do feel like without us having clarity about the finances, it's hard for us to make an informed decision, or for me to make a recommendation on anything regarding their purchase.
Right.
I do want us.
That's why we want Jerry to talk to her.
Yeah. Kim, I do want us though to do a much better job at being responsive, because, you know, her email sat for a while, and the reason I reached out to her is because I didn't see anybody else.
I text and call Tony.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm, just as you said, you're not at the top of your game. I'm in an employment battle with my employer as well, too. That was somewhat resolved today.
Yeah.
The past month is
Well,
stressful.
I'm including myself in this statement, okay? Because,
So,
Group emails are tough, because
yeah,
sometimes
But
I
email
don't
is-
reply all, and someone doesn't know I'm
email
replying.
to me is the
And I
worst
agree with you,
possible.
Alfredo, and I do want to recognize Sonia and Lizette for their prompt responses to all the people who inquire about us, because they do such an awesome job, and I think we all need to model ourselves after the responses that how quickly they respond. So I agree with you totally, Alfredo, and I know our lives are out there, but we do have to do a better job of responding to each other as quick as possible.
yes. So I just wanted to finish my statement, because it is a recommendation in here. And it's,
Okay.
you know, if we get emails like the one Tony sent, and she tends to send them to the whole board, which doesn't make clear who among us should be answering it. Can we make that decision right now, like whose responsibility is to respond to Birmingham? Okay, and so that way, if I see that it's been a day and she's got no response, do you mind if I text you and say, hey,
That's not a
I don't want to be a pest, but I want us to be, you know, because I think if the lack of response from us creates an anxiety that we keep talking about the membership having. And, you know, I just want to minimize that as much as possible.
May I comment? Or,
Of course.
I do want to acknowledge, because sometimes anxiety is built because the response is not what you want or what the individual is expecting the answer to be. Because and for full transparency, there has been many conversations with Tony between myself and Jerry. And a lot of this is pending, because there's some uncertainty and some anxiety over what's going on. Until this gets solidified and they have their own solidified, they are unfortunately trapped in this odd limbo because they don't have a budget, they don't have finances. And I'm not disagreeing, we got to be able to say that and go into that, so that we can make these decisions for you, we have to clarify this piece. So I think to answer the point of question, Jerry is the point of contact for Birmingham. Text, email, or whatever, or respond back to Tony, or have you reached out to Jerry?
Yep. Okay. And when you do respond to her emails, if you don't mind copying the rest of us, so that we know, like, it's been handled, even if it's just, I'm handling this, and
Sure.
the rest of us know.
I can do that, but I am not good on email. I'm much better on person to person and texting to say, are you available to chat? And again, the request that Tony made is a conversation that Francois and I have had with her since February. And again, I think his point is being, she doesn't like the answer, so she's going to try to put the screws elsewhere.
That sounds negative.
Way.
That sounds negative, and that's not intended to be
But
negative.
it's more of,
Very positive.
she's anxious and wants to move forward on a lot of things.
With others about the same
She's tenacious, yeah, and which is good. But Jerry, can I make a comment?
Sure.
If we're doing this to keep everything written and documented, even though you're not good at email, my personal opinion is you gotta get good at email, as far as that.
Well, we can have a conversation of that offline, Kim.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm just saying, for business purposes, we all have to be good at email. So, yeah, you're right, that's an offline, but I just want to make that clear. It's not just for you, it's to everybody. We don't know what's going on if we only text or make phone calls. And some things are meant to be that way. It's important to keep them not in writing, and some things need to be in writing. So anyway, that was just my statement. Sorry.
Kim?
Yes.
Kim, we have, I think, a suggestion to meet next Thursday, and I don't think we made a decision yet, so.
I thought we were going to evaluate the document and follow back up. So we want to use it as a placeholder.
Yeah, with Thursday work for everyone.
Maybe if we just put it on hold, yeah, let's just have something on the calendars as a hold.
Correct.
And follow up on Monday.
We can confirm, yeah.
What's the date?
The
29th.
So we're talking the 29th?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're putting a hold on the calendar, and we may confirm by Monday. I think that's what we agreed to.
Is Wednesday out of the question?
Yeah, I'm literally booked from 2 o'clock until I have an audition from 6 to 10, so.
All right, I'll see what I can do.
7 to 9, and we could still meet here if that's convenient for everybody.
Can we make it 7 to 8? Is there?
7 to
Well, it always lasts till, it's 8:30 now, so let's just say 7, 8:30. All that.
I will be on a plane until 9 p.m. from 6 to 9 p.m. Thursday night, coming back from Oklahoma. So I will not be able to facilitate, but that doesn't mean you guys can't still do it.
Well, ideally, right, the intent is to have questions. If there's an attorney involved, obviously they'd need to reach out to Abed before this meeting and work through most of that stuff. And if there's questions, ideally, we can either work it out beforehand, and then that's why I thought maybe we can time box it to an hour, because it really would, I'd like to have as many answers beyond us before we actually sit down and meet and make the meeting a little bit more productive in terms of executing and getting it.
I'm going to have to still put a tentative thing, because it's the first week of class, and I'm meant to be a speaker at one of this person's classes. So I need to confirm that it's still on the plan. And so if I am confirmed to do that, I cannot meet on Thursday night.
It's Friday an option?
Friday's the Friday before Labor Day,
The 30th?
and we're flying out.
You're flying out?
Yep.
Okay.
So let's see what questions you guys
Let's see,
have.
I
There's a
agree
way
with
of,
Francois. Let's move to try and get a lot of this stuff resolved via phone and, you know,
Say it.
behind the scenes with the attorney. What's that?
An email?
You wanted to say email, I know you wanted to say it.
No, I'm talking about the attorneys, you know, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And let's all do a, you know, a group email to see where everybody's at come Monday, Tuesday.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
This has been, by the way, excellent. I think we all did an awesome job. You guys all give yourselves a round of applause, and this is.
Hey, I have to compliment that
Very
people
productive.
took notes, and I appreciated that, and I really, really believe that we should add more pink to Rossi's crutches.
Gotta have something
Thank you.
fashionable.
Kim, thank you.
Love your Wonder Woman bag.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Good luck in
No problem.
Shreveport.
All right.
I can.
Spacelink, Earthlings? Oh, all right.
What's happening?
Blink.
Earthlings.
Earthlings, I'm out.